Suhas, I really thank you for enabling this. It was need of the hour that we get the top personalities to address. You're taking a lot of efforts. I'm sure you will continue taking such efforts. I also request Mr. Natarajan to help us in enabling this spotlight series. Maithili, I am really thankful to you. Somewhere we created a model of excellence and we said we will create each institute a leader for excellence, and I requested Maithili to lead it and she immediately accepted it. I am grateful. We need to do with excellence as a movement, and I am sure under your leadership, much better way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this warm words of welcome. I request you, sir, to kindly escort our chief guest and our session host, Sri Suhas Mallya, sir, to the dais, please. Can we have a loud round of applause, please? A program such as this becomes truly meaningful when we have the opportunity to hear from individuals whose experience and insights can broaden our perspectives. May I now invite Dr. Maithili Naik, Vice Principal Excellence, who has worked tirelessly behind the scenes to introduce our esteemed chief guest.
Good morning, respected chief guest, president, principal, dignitaries in the audience, members of the industry, faculty, students, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Leadership, in the words of John C. Maxwell, is often described as knowing the way, going the way, and showing the way. I feel these words resonate extremely well with the journey of our esteemed chief guest, a leader who has built, led, transformed organizations, and who today draws upon that experience to guide young entrepreneurs in building their own enterprise. It is indeed my privilege to introduce to you Mr. Krishna Kumar Natarajan, KK as he is widely known, an entrepreneur, industry leader, technology leader, investor, mentor, and a distinguished authority in global IT and Indian startup ecosystem. In 1999, at a time when India's technology story was still unfolding, KK, along with his co-founders, took the bold decision to start Mindtree. What began as an entrepreneurial idea grew today into a globally respected technology enterprise. He played a vital role in building Mindtree's business and its approach to innovation. As the executive chairman, he helped build Mindtree into a $1 billion revenue company with a market capitalization of $3.5 billion. His leadership extended beyond Mindtree. As chairman of NASSCOM, he contributed to strengthening India's IT ecosystem and enhancing its competitiveness in global markets. The most interesting chapter of KK's journey began when, after having successfully built an enterprise for himself, he decided to turn his experience towards building entrepreneurs. In 2020, he started Mega Ventures with the vision of building technologies for global markets from India. He believes in investing with a purpose, backing entrepreneurs who solve meaningful problems through technology. Today, Mega Ventures backs technology-led B2B enterprises with a strong focus on areas such as deep tech, climate tech, and enterprise technology. Its philosophy is centered around supporting fearless entrepreneurs with a focus on patient capital. As an active angel investor, his contribution to founders go well beyond capital. As a mentor, he works very closely with them on strategy, technology choices, fundraising, people, and most importantly, in helping them build organizations that can endure. His contribution to business and technology has been recognized nationally and globally. Business World and Forbes ranked him amongst the most valuable CEOs in India in 2016. He won Bloomberg UTV's award as the CEO of the Year in 2010. Business Today CEO of the Year award in 2014 and was recognized by Chief Executive Magazine as one of the 12 global leaders of tomorrow. Ernst & Young honored him with Entrepreneur of the Year award in 2015 in services. And his efforts also resulted in Mindtree winning the Most Promising Company of the Year award in 2013 by CNBC TV18. Beyond the corporate world, there is yet another dimension to KK. He's deeply engaged with social enterprise and philanthropy. Along with his wife, through their personal foundation, Mela, he supports rural girls in attaining professional qualification and takes up initiatives that help senior citizens age gracefully. And when he's not building businesses or mentoring founders, you're likely to find him with a book in his hand or on a golf course. He's a voracious reader and an avid golfer. Sir, our students, faculty members, and members of the industry can draw tremendous insights from your journey. As we begin this inaugural session of the Spotlight series for this academic year, we cannot think of a more fitting personality to set the tone for the conversations we hope this platform will create. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and pleasure to present to you our chief guest for today, Mr. Krishna Kumar Natarajan.
Flowers have a simple yet powerful language. They convey respect, warmth, and appreciation without saying a word. A gesture of our respect and admiration. I now request our dynamic principal, Professor Sanjay Savandesai, to extend a floral welcome to our chief guest. Can we have a loud round of applause, please? Thank you, sir. With this, we move on now to the central feature of today's program, the Spotlight Interaction. Hosting the session today, we have with us Mr. Suhas Mallya, Executive Director of MCO Goa Private Limited. To introduce our session host, may I invite Dr. Shami Pai, our Vice Principal, to do the honors.
Very good morning to one and all, dignitaries on the race of the race. It is my absolute privilege to introduce my own ex-student of this college, a moderator for today's panel discussion, a proud alumnus of our own Sri Damodar College, Mr. Suhas Mallya. Suhas graduated in Commerce from Damodar College, securing the 3rd rank at the university level before going on to complete his PG diploma in software technology and MSc in IT. With over 27 years of experience, he brings a rich perspective that seamlessly bridges technology, business leadership, and academia. He spent 14 years in the IT industry, including nearly 7 years with Mindtree, working as a solutions architect across enterprise systems in Bangalore and Silicon Valley, California. Since 2012, he has served as an executive director at MCO Goa Private Limited, overseeing their packaged foods division alongside group-wide IT automation and GST compliance. But beyond his corporate accomplishments, Suhas is deeply passionate about practical education and student engagement. He has taught at prestigious institutions including CDAC Bangalore, Goa University, and IIT Bangalore. As a head of our BCom program, Mentoring Council, he actively works to bring real-world clarity to learning, regularly conducting hands-on training sessions for students in practical accounting and GST. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to our own proud alumnus, Mr. Suhas Mallya.
Thank you, ma'am. As a gesture of gratitude and appreciation, I request Dr. Leena Sadekar, IQAC Coordinator, to extend a floral welcome to our session host. I think sir deserves a louder round of applause, please. And now, the spotlight is truly on. We look forward to an engaging conversation that will bring together perspectives, experiences, and ideas, followed by an opportunity for our audience also to interact through a question-answer session. I now invite our session host, Sir Suhas Mallya sir, to take forward the proceedings.
basic necessities of life which were there, but at the same time the environment helped you evolve much more, because I don't know whether any of you come in from a community like railways. It provides you the entire facility. Like, I learned to play games at a competitive level because of the facilities which are there in the railways. Like, I was a competitive table tennis player playing at the state level when I was in school, and that got enabled because railways had the benefit of a national champion. I still remember his name was T.T. Jagannath. He worked for the railways and he coached us, so you got into that competitive thing. But it's very important. Sports teaches you a very basic discipline that you don't win always. You win sometimes, you also lose sometimes. And how do you take both wins and losses with the same mindset of trying to keep improving? Like Nitin rightly said, the whole idea of excellence is really, as individuals and institutions, we need to keep improving every day. Yeah. So one of my early influences was sports and how it enabled you to work in a diverse environment and also go through the ups and downs which subsequently happened in later life. But beyond that, I sort of, like I said, grew up mainly in Chennai, went to engineering at the College of Engineering, Guindy, then went for my business school at XLR Junction. But probably the best thing which happened to me was, quite accidentally, I joined with one of the very early employees in Wipro. Wipro was just getting into the IT field. In fact, many people ask me, saying, at that time I had offers from other IT companies which are more popular. And they said, why do you join a company which is selling Vanaspati? What are you going to do? I said, no, I just like the person who interviewed me, so I'm joining him. But that turned out to be one of my best decisions, because very honestly, the type of companies and the exposure you get in your early career really influences you a lot later on in my time, and I had really the fortune of observing and working very closely with Mr. Azim Premji, and a lot of what I have learned and what influences and what I am is really influenced by his thinking and what he demonstrated to the world. So that was another, I would say, very accidental thing, but it tends to influence. So one of the lessons I'd like to leave with young people like you is, many times we get influenced by brands and we get influenced by what external people will think about. I'm just saying, somebody thinks, hey, going to Unilever is great because when I tell my colleagues that I've got an opportunity to work with Unilever, it's great. But honestly, rather than in Unilever, another smaller company which will enable you to learn and develop as a professional might probably be much better rather than starting with Unilever early in the career stage. Yeah. So it's very important for you to really think in terms of what is it that will really work in your context, what are you aiming to achieve. And one of the other lessons which I've really learned is, at the end of the day in life, nothing comes without effort. I think it's all through hard work, perseverance, and having the resilience to go through ups and downs. So don't try any shortcuts. Like in my venture investing phase now, many times I see entrepreneurs who present ideas saying, you know what, this is a great field, in the US it's worked well, I will run this company for 3 years, hopefully I'll sell it for 5x the value, and then I want to go and relax in Goa. That's what some people genuinely want to do, and their idea of starting a business is really to make some quick money. I call them the slot machine entrepreneurs, because they think just like a slot machine will throw a lot of coins when you're lucky, they just want to do that. We try and really stay away from them, not because of anything else. I think when you start something, there must be a purpose, which is something I've learned. Like when we started Mindtree, clearly we wanted to be a much more socially responsible company. Yeah. Because many of our people who co-founded with me were all people from the middle class. We said, hey, if we succeed, we must really make the world a better place to live. And that's how even when we started, we said we'll work with children of cerebral palsy, which is people who have this condition called autism. So a lot of our efforts went in terms of helping those children. I'm sure Suhas will recollect. All our offices were decorated with paintings of children who have this autism as a thing. Because many times we think those children are intelligent, they can't do anything. But they are also very creative. They can display their creativity in terms of painting. So we made it a point to really decorate all our offices with painting of those children. Other than that, we used to work very actively with them, helping them become normal thing. In fact, the person who made the first logo of Mindtree was a kid with autism. Because we wanted the company to stand for imagination, action and joy. Because we wanted to be imaginative in terms of how we do things. We wanted to do it with speed, which is action. And while doing it, we wanted all our people to enjoy what they do. That's how we wanted the company to stand for imagination, action and joy. Yeah. And this kid painted a logo which represents imagination, action and joy. And that's what we adopted as a logo. So, what I want to, in a way, leave with you is, I think in many of your key actions, you must be driven by a purpose of why you want to do it. And that is what really guides your actions, because in some way, you may not achieve success in the short term. It might take probably 8 years, 10 years to do that. But you should never forget the purpose with which you started doing something. So those are some of my early thoughts.
Thank you, KK. I think nothing comes without hard work and a sense of purpose. I think they're particularly befitting for today's circumstances where I think there is excessive influence, like you said, not to be influenced by external thoughts. I think thanks to social media today, there is excessive influence of our happiness being defined by what we think others are happy with.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Let's move on to a little bit about organization development. You touched upon partly the Mindtree story. Always inspiring to hear that. And the context for organization development that why I listed this is that today what has happened is that there are many people who have taken the entrepreneurial leap of faith. People with high acumen, high purpose, high energy, but they may not have the ecosystem to translate their vision into reality. So this is one track. The other thing that has happened is that with businesses, especially smaller businesses, there is so much disruption today that the entire environment has got redefined. And as a result, a lot of CEOs are literally or figuratively going back to the classroom to rethink, relearn. And strangely, I think principles of educational institutions have to today behave like CEOs, because you have to deal with attrition, you have to deal with compliance, you have to deal with student centricity, student expectations. So in this context of all of this, and you are somebody who has built multiple organizations, you took the Wipro global footprint, to $1 billion. You started Mindtree from scratch and then rebuilt it midway when it was at about $350–400 million. There was a leadership crisis. You emerged from that, and that's one of the adversities that I saw you deal with.
Yes.
And take it past the $1 billion mark. And now with Mega Ventures in 5 years, you've already floated to AIFs, and you have a decent portfolio, an enviable portfolio, in fact, of climate tech, deep tech. So tell us a little bit about organization development. How should somebody dealing with, leading an organization in these circumstances, how do we approach organization development?
See, many times we do think that organizations are driven by individuals, because what we tend to read is about people who are building those organizations. But honestly, the organization is more a continuum of several people putting in their efforts. So one of the first principles in investing we really apply is, we really don't invest in organizations which are a single founder. Because the fact is, compared to the time when 25 years back when I started Mindtree, today the degree of difficulty to build a company to scale is probably 100x more. Because markets are much more competitive, and like Suhas rightly said, there is disruptions happening every year. One very example which I keep telling my founders is, sure many of us who are in the 40s and 50s will agree that the mobile phone took about 15 years to become mainstream. Internet probably took 20 years to become mainstream. Whereas AI within the last 3 years has become mainstream already. So the technology adoption cycles are shrinking and it's also happening faster. So for many of the students who are getting into the workplace, or you're going to be the future of your industry over the next 10, 20 years, you must be prepared for disruptions. It's no more whether it will happen, it's a reality. It will happen. Today it's AI, it's AGI, tomorrow it might be something else. So the first thing is, how do you really deal with those disruptions? One of the simple principles I have is, I think this, Suhas talked about the ecosystem. Today, the enabling environment for entrepreneurship in India is extremely sound. Today there are enough of people, if you find a problem, whether he's in Bombay or Bangalore or Chennai, you can just call people and ask them for advice. I must be honest, as Indians we normally hesitate to ask somebody for any help. So that is one simple thing which you should sort of adopt, saying that if you are facing a problem where you are not sure what is the way forward, don't feel hesitant to really ask somebody who is more an expert in that space. And today, with the way technology is available, communications technology is improved, you can seek help from anywhere in the world. Just to give you an example, at Mela Ventures, we are one of the earliest investors in an area called agricultural drones. The reason why we chose to invest in that was, I know many of you know that the way farmers use spraying, because they do spray because otherwise insecticides or pesticides will really spoil the thing. Human beings used to carry those and really spray. While doing that, a lot of them absorb the chemicals. So if you look at data, rural India has almost 12 lakhs people who are afflicted by lung-related infections because they absorb the pesticides while doing the spraying. So we said there must be a more farmer-friendly, people-friendly technology to do this without people getting affected. Which is how we chose the agricultural drone, which by manning it from a remote place, you can easily spray the crops. The danger of people getting afflicted by that will also not happen. Purpose is good, but the business was struggling to grow, partly because we didn't understand the agricultural distribution network. How do you sell to farmers? So I've been having conversations with multiple people, and instantly, just before coming here, day first, I had a call with one of the very senior persons in ITC. They grow a lot of tobacco, and he was on a vacation in the US. So I had a call with him in the US to understand some aspects of it. So what I want to sort of leave as a message with you is, irrespective of what stage you are in your career or what you are, don't feel diffident to seek expertise from people who probably will know more about it. Because the world today, everybody is willing to share knowledge. And that's one of the best examples. See, honestly, if you come to a place like Bangalore, every cafe is crowded, but in each table you will find 3 people discussing a business idea with somebody who knows about that space. So the ecosystem in Bangalore has grown. And that is what needs to happen in places like Goa. But don't take current non-availability of the ecosystem in Goa as an excuse not to seek external help. Today you can write an email to anybody and tell them, hey, can you give me a meeting on Teams, or can I call you on your mobile and ask you a few questions. So it's very important to seek help whenever you need it, and that's a very important thing. The third aspect in terms of organization building is, I think it's very important, particularly in early stages of the organization, to build the right team around you. What I mean by that is people who in a way buy into your purpose. Like at Mela Ventures, we say the focus is not on us, it's really on the entrepreneurs and our ability to help them to build great companies. So the type of, we are not a large firm, we are just 8 people. The type of people who come on board are people who passionately believe that their job is to help other entrepreneurs. So in building an organization, it's very critical in terms of really putting together the first team of 8-10 people, all of whom you have personally sold the vision and they believe in the purpose of the organization and they genuinely think that they can contribute to it. So the early team is very, very important. The other aspect is culture. See, many times it's very difficult to define culture in a few words. In Mela, we used to define culture as we want to be one of the most memorable and admired companies. But that means different things to different people. So culture in a way has to be reinforced by what you call as behaviors which you want people to really follow. And how do you really act? How does leadership act in demonstrating those behaviors? So one of our behavioral or value system, as we call it, it had a nice acronym called CLASS. C used to stand for caring. We wanted people to care for others. L stands for learning, which means we wanted every individual who becomes, in fact, we never used to call them employees, we call them Mindtree Minds. We wanted every Mindtree Mind to learn and continuously improve themselves. A stands for achieving, which is really you always have to have a high performance mindset. You need to constantly keep achieving. And L is for learning and S is for socially being responsible. So it's important to support culture with behaviors which will reinforce that culture, and particularly the leadership must walk that culture. That is so critical in building an organization. Having said that, there will be possible business scenarios where genuinely those behaviors will get questioned. When we talk about in Mindtree a high achieving culture, there will be somebody who fails to do that. But our approach has always been, we used to tell, saying, hey, yes, everybody is running a race. If one of your colleagues by mistake falls down, don't sort of point him out as a failure and start questioning him saying, oh, you should have done this better, this is how you fell down. Rather, the attitude should be, you sort of hold him by shoulder and say, hey, have you got hurt? Are you okay? Hopefully you have not got hurt. And then help him come back to the field. So we have very much realized when you support people during failures, that is when you really get people who over a period of time really become high performers. And that's what the organization culture has to really support and enable. And lastly, I think building an organization is not a 100 meters dash. It doesn't happen in a year or two. It takes a long time. After 20 years in Mela, we said we have probably come maybe 30-40% of what is an ideal state in terms of building an organization, which can genuinely become a memorable and an admired company. So patience is very important. Maybe if you want to talk about the adversity, I can talk as a separate thing.
Sure, no, I have a separate question on that. Thank
Yes.
you for that. So, but just a follow-up question. I think I've seen many of the things that you just described in action. And clearly, I think what you're saying is that many of those things still hold on today, even after 20 years. What are some of the things that have changed in terms of, in terms of team building, in terms of being able to sell a vision and match it with somebody's aspirations? Because I think today one of the challenges is that the aspirations of your C team today may be very different from what it used to be 20 years ago. Of course, if you are able to sell the purpose, it becomes easier, but that may only apply to the top run or your initial C team. What about the rest of the organization?
No, it's an interesting question. What has changed? In fact, when I was speaking to Mr. Nitin prior to this session, he said at the institution you put in a new sort of step by which you get in students to come and talk in terms of what their aspirations are. That's a very important element. In a sense, when I see how organizations are getting built today, it's very different from what it was 20 years back. 20 years back, the purpose of starting Mindtree, of being a much more socially responsible organization, was a thinking which was there in the 8-9 co-founders who built the organization. But today, it's far more a collaborative process. In a sense, the Gen Zs or the Gen Alphas want to play a part in terms of saying, how do I influence the direction of the organization? So the first basic thing is to get them to become a part of really even defining the purpose and what is the journey you need to take to really achieve that purpose. Clearly, the other way in which you need to bring collaboration is really your customer and your customer's customer. In fact, in many of the startups which we have funded, we really have customers whom we designate as design partners for the business itself, which means they very actively contribute to what is being built, what is really the value which needs to get created, how are we doing it, and so on. So, the process of building the organization from a one or a two-man person who had the vision to state what is the organization and where he wants to go, today is becoming a far more consultative and collaborative option, which is why I would encourage each of your students to actively engage in this. If Mr. Nitin is giving you an opportunity and a platform to participate in that, please actively participate, because that's the way new organizations are going to get created.
Thank you, Niti. So, based on your own experiences, both as a leader as well as a venture capitalist, what are the red flags that you see in that set of your alarm bells in a team? You mentioned one, which is somebody coming solo without a team.
Yeah.
What about, other than the business idea, of course you will assess the business idea on its based on your own knowledge, bring in experts and so on. I think that is extremely important and that's the core. But that is something that I think most people would think of. What are some of the other things that set off alarm bells?
So there are a couple of things. One, clearly, at least in the early stage venture ecosystem which I work with, too much of focus on valuation. See, unfortunately, while India is now the third most, what I would call, startup ecosystem in the world, there is too much of emphasis and honor of badges being given to people who call themselves unicorns. I don't know how many of you have heard this terminology. It's companies which have achieved valuation of at least 9,000 crores or above. It's $1 billion or above. If the founders at the stage when they are ideating and building the business, if their focus is too much on valuation, honestly I see that as a red flag, because you need to be ruthlessly focused in terms of the product or service which you're building. How is it making the life easy for your customers and their customer's customer? And yes, you can get valuation. I keep telling my entrepreneurs saying, you build value, valuation will come as an outcome of that. Don't get too much focused on valuation. But unfortunately, in today's world of social media and money control, getting an interview for somebody who has achieved unicorn valuation, many founders are also misguided. They feel that if Economic Times carries an article saying that they're $1 billion company, they get a lot of achievement and many of their friends think that they have served in life. But the problem is that $1 billion valuation never stays. If you don't do well, there are companies which 2 years back were $1 billion valuation. In fact, without naming the company, it was an EdTech company which was a $2 billion valuation, which got sold for nothing just a couple of months back. So it's very important as we as investors, we really see valuation focus from the founder being a red flag. Yeah. The second thing which we honestly believe is transparency. Yeah. If there are challenges in the business, we want the founders to share that so that we can help them in a way try and address those challenges. Many times we have seen founders window dressing some of either their revenues or things, which honestly as business people who have been there, we can over a period of time with 2 meetings, 3 meetings, we can find out saying, hey, this part of it doesn't seem right. Yeah. So transparency is very, very important. The third aspect which we'll be very concerned about is unfortunately many times people think that people who come to evaluate my business may not be aware of this. So there is a lot of what I really call related party transactions. I'm a company, I bill to a friend or relative of mine, they sort of bill me back. On paper and accounting it looks great, but when you get into the details or if you open the hood of the transaction, then you start seeing that there are related party transactions. But the fact is, if you really ask me, what is the root of some of this? Honestly, the root of some of this, I keep saying it's our media itself, because many times the media tends to hero worship people who have just reached some milestone without adequately getting into details of how did they reach there. So people think if that is what is getting attention, I'll also do what gets attention to me. Yeah. So I would think these are 3 areas where we would be very concerned about.
Thank you. Moving on, just want to talk about adversity. So I have seen 3 scenarios where 2 at first quarters. One was when there were pressures on margins.
Yes.
When Mindtree was in the low double digits, but still profitable. But the peers were a little higher double digits, and again media put in a lot of scrutiny and put in a lot of, it caused a lot of pressure. And there was of course during the leadership transition and most recently during the acquisition of Mindtree. Typically when you are faced with adversity and you have the resources and the ability to do so, it's very easy to yell, scream, get onto a platform like Money Control, CNBC. I think your conduct was conspicuous by the absence of all of that, and that was something that struck me. And you may not recall, but there was one instance when you were sitting next to me at the San Jose office, and back then I used to travel a lot, and there was the Priceline, which is like the Make My Trip, and I used to be pretty proud that I used to hunt for bargains for my hotels and stay at $100 hotels when the rack rate was 180, 190, and I thought I was doing my bit. Till one day you were sitting next to me, and I remember you went and got a $60 hotel, and that to me was like, and that was with a DoubleTree across the road, right, which you could very well have stayed at. And I saw the same thing, and it particularly struck me because just a few years before that, I was at another listed company where it went through a similar pressure. And that's where I was talking of the dignity, right? The behavior of the leadership there was very different. I won't blame them, but it was clear that it was different. So just like to hear your views on how do you navigate adversity in all these scenarios.
See, one, like I mentioned earlier, building a company is probably a long journey. I always keep telling entrepreneurs it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Many of you who probably do running as a thing will realize that most runners who run marathon during the exercise many times feel they should just give up because their body is just sort of not suited for this, but they still carry through that. It's how, like Suhas said, it might be many what I call near-death experiences. Like we started in 99, did very well. The first year we did about, I think, 70, 80 crores. And we were only focused on helping enterprises use internet more effectively. But suddenly in 2000, the dot-com bust happened. So overnight, 70% of our customers disappeared. They not only disappeared, many of them were startups who closed down business and they owed us money. So suddenly the company had to write off dues which they had, and customers were lost. And then we had investors. The investors were putting a lot of pressure, saying, oh, now we have to reduce your team. We have some 200, 300 people. They said, oh, send off at least 150 people, only then we can manage. Whereas the way in which we did it was, we said, you know what, we will consult all our people and then we will come back to the solution. So we called everybody, and when I say transparency, in Mindtree we used to have a philosophy of what we call 95, 95, 95. What that means is, every Mindtree mind should have access to 95% of the information, and not more than 5% of the instances will they have where they have not been aware of that, which means there is a high level of transparency in terms of whatever happens in the company. Yeah. So we discussed with people, everybody was uniform, saying we will not send off a single person. We are willing to take pay cuts on that. While the senior management sort of said, fine, we will not take pay for the next 1 year. Even including people who are fresh from college or joined, we are willing to take a 25-30% pay cut, and that's how we sort of manage the adversity. So coming back, one approach of really managing adversity is to really demonstrate a tremendous amount of transparency as well as engage people in the way in which you solve the problem. I think that becomes a very key thing. Now coming to the next set of adversity which Suhas mentioned, where there was quote unquote almost a forced leadership transition. See, what happens when you are successful as a company, you start thinking horns have also grown on you. Just to give you a thing, Mindtree in 2007 got listed in National Stock Exchange. It was one of the blockbuster IPOs there. We went to the market to raise, I think, some 400 crores. We got commitments for more than 40,000 crores, more than 100x of what it was. Obviously, as a listed company, we were doing very well, and the usual thing of media saying, oh, this is a new age Infosys and big guys all doing well and so on. 2008, the global financial crisis happened. So business started slowing down. Because we were in the media sort of quote scene, we started getting anxious in terms of how do we push our numbers. That was the time when the smartphones were becoming popular. And technically, we had the capability to build a smartphone. We had the software capability, we didn't have the hardware design capability. And just then, the Japanese company called Kyocera had a mobile hardware design center which they had built in Bangalore. They were wanting to sell it. So we said, here's a good opportunity, we'll buy that hardware unit, we have the software, we'll build a smartphone. And at the end of the day, spreadsheets give you a lot of what I call dreams. So you put in a spreadsheet saying that if we sell the smartphone in the US, normal street price of smartphone is $400, and I know many of you know the US, when you buy a mobile plan, it comes along with the phone. So you have to go sell to the T-Mobile, you have to go sell to the Verizons that you buy my phone and give it along with your plan thing. And we said, oh, they are now buying from Apple at $500. If we give them $200, it will be a great thing. So spreadsheets give great thing. $200 into 1 million phones, 200 million revenue will come. It's very easy because it's a horizontal and you only have to put a formula. This cell into that cell, it will give you a thing. We went into that, then realized, and we built it on Android. Then realized by the time we went to the market, Android has become much more popular, and there are 10 guys who are building Android smartphones. So smartly, both T-Mobile and Verizon were doing field tests with our smartphone. Said, you know what, we won't take the risk of inventory. You have to put the phones on your cost in the stores, and then for each phone sold, there's a 30% incentive you have to give to the sales guy. That is also on your account. So the mechanics of the business entirely changed. The spreadsheet of 200 into $1 million phones and 200 million revenue never came through. Not even $1 million sale happened, and we had already put in $15 million into that business. So then like I said earlier, networking, I tried finding out who's the best guy to give advice on this. There was one guy whom I got connected in London who had done the smartphone business. So I went to him and asked him, saying, honestly, his first question was, are you smoking? You think you can build a smartphone business with $15 million? You are just completely wrong. You know, that trip back from London to Bangalore, back to dinner economy, I couldn't sleep 1 minute. And honestly, that created a leadership dissonance because that was sort of very much driven by our chairman then, who decided to quit. Because as a CEO, I took the decision saying, you know what, I'm going to go to the market, we're already a listed company, and say, you know what, we have made a mistake. We just want to write off this 15 million. He didn't agree. In fact, he went on TV before telling us that he's quitting. So it created a lot of things. In 2 days, the company lost 80% of the value. And obviously this becomes, in fact, honestly it is very embarrassing even to walk out because everybody says, hey, here is a company which has lost 80% value. And to be fair, there were a lot of senior people who started doubting, saying, hey, will the company survive? So at the VP level and above, we had about 30-40 people who quit and went on. But I tell you, in a way, that turned out to be a blessing in disguise for the company because a lot of younger people took up responsibility. And all that we said was, you know what, we have reached the rock bottom. We can't go any further down. From here, we only have to climb up. So we got back into what we say, let's get back to basic. We'll build our business back. So, and this happened in 2010. And I think while doing the introduction, somebody said 2013, Mindtree got recognized as the most promising company. They really bounced back after that. So the lesson I want to sort of leave with you on this sort of an adversity is, there will be many times when people will write you off, saying, you know what, you cannot recover from that. First, don't lose your hope. Because at the end of the day, it is your ability to be confident even at the time of adversity. And don't be afraid to admit your mistakes, even in public. Because at the end of the day, the moment you admit your mistake in public, there is no load on your heart. You can start focusing on what you need to get out of that. So that's a very important aspect to build. Saying that you must sort of admit your mistakes and don't feel diffident to admit your mistakes even in public. And coming to the third adversity which Suhas talked about. See, in a way, when you are a successful company, there will always be predators. I'm not saying it in the wrong way. Honestly, capitalism is about people who have the resources and their ability to manage certain transactions. Very honestly, did I not know L&T was buying our shares? I knew very well. I knew some strange company in Rajasthan is buying 2-3% of our stocks, except I didn't know who it was. But then when one of our key investors who held about 20% of the company, he fell into a debt trap and he wanted to sell and he sold L&T. It was a difficult battle. So there were two options really. One is to say, okay, I know I can't fight this fight, let me just give up. But we took the other option of saying, no, you know what, we will say that we don't, no, fundamentally the culture is a very different culture. I'm not saying that L&T's culture is bad or Mindtree's culture is great. It's just two different cultures. You can't expect those very different cultures to merge and create great outcomes for company. So we resisted it. We failed. So honorably, I sort of moved out from that and then started my next chapter. So from the third adversity, the lesson which I'd like to leave for you was, see, you'll always find that there are circumstances where you feel it's impossible to fight this. But honestly, as a professional, you need to do what your heart tells you to do. I think that's very important. So today I don't have a regret in terms of having that fight with L&T, and that's why I'm able to sleep well. I didn't sell a single share to L&T, which later on worked out much well for me as I was selling principal share, how that happened. But it's very important even in the context of extreme adversity not to give up and do what your heart tells you to do. Because that is where you will as a professional learn, and you might lose. It might be a very public loss. But the fact is there's nothing to be ashamed about it. There are people who always say, you know what, you built Nike with so much passion for 20 years, suddenly it got snatched out of your hand. I'll say, you know what, it turned out to be good for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have started Mela Ventures. I wouldn't be doing investing in helping other entrepreneurs. So look at what is the positive outcome of any negative things which come out of an insurmountable adversity. I'm not saying nobody will not have an insurmountable adversity. All of us will have something like that. But what is important is not to lose your voice. What is important is not to lose your confidence. What is important is to enable your close ecosystem not to get demotivated by that. Because it's very interesting, one of the press people, while this whole battle was going on, they wanted an interview. I sort of gave an interview and I was smiling. So this lady asked me saying, you know what, there is so much shit going around you. You are smiling. I said, you know what, optimism is something which I have. Nobody can take that out of me. So to remain optimistic is my choice. I made the choice of saying that irrespective of a very difficult environment, I'll be optimistic about it. Which is why I'm smiling. So that's very important.
Thank you, Katie. I think the takeaway for me from that is that there is no real skill, it's just a mindset.
Yes.
To deal with adversity. And I can 100% relate to that reporter's perception of your smile, because every time you walked into the door, it was always with a smile. And it's always how I remember it. So thank you. We'll just go on to the next question. Before I go on to that question, a pop quiz for the audience. How many of you know the correct name of a e-catalog called Tote? T-O-T-E. Anybody? Show of hands. T-O-T-E. Tote. An e-catalog. Product catalog. E-catalog called Tote. What is the correct name? Show of hands, anybody? Okay. How many of you know the correct name of a check-in app? A check-in app called, a location check-in app called Burben, B-U-R-B-N, which allowed you to actually upload photos. Anybody? How many of you know of a video dating app whose tagline was "Tune in, hook up"? How I know it? That's a tricky question. I defer that. So Toad is today Pinterest. Burben is today Instagram. And Tune in, hook up is what is being used to telecast this session live, which is YouTube. So the question, KK, for you is that all of these companies succeeded. They had to pivot. They faced a crisis, they faced an existential crisis, and they pivoted and they succeeded. But the problem with success stories is that we only know the successes. We don't know about the failures. Yeah. And I know from personal experience that for every such success, there are probably 1,000 or 10,000 failures where they pivoted and failed and created a problem. But the problem is you will only know that in hindsight.
Yes.
Now, this is a classic problem for every startup, because especially if you're bootstrapped, with your own funds, you want to grab the next available opportunity because it is potentially a cash-generating opportunity. So my question to you is, how do you distinguish the opportunities from the distractions?
See, that is one thing which every startup goes through, because honestly, in a startup, you're always in a survival mode. Am I going to make the payroll for the next month? How is the money going to come in? So you're always in the managing scarce resources and trying to manage it every day, every month. So there's always a distraction. If another opportunity comes, you want to do it. I think to some extent, you cannot prevent that. If you have started with a certain purpose and then you find that there's only one customer and the other customers are taking time and you get distracted. But the key question question comes, if that becomes a very repeatable sort of thing, then it will really take you away from the purpose. So many times what we tell many of our founders is that I think a small distraction is okay because you are really doing it in the context of surviving. Because a survival instinct is very different from building a business. But you must not get distracted from the purpose of building a business. And if you want to pivot, the best people to give you that feedback is your early customers. Which is something we encourage a lot of our founders, saying that if you find that you have sold to 2 customers and you are not able to get the next 3 customers, go and talk to your current customers, saying that, hey, you bought it from me, you paid me for this, are you realizing the value which you got? What are some of the things which is not working? Because the reason why you are not able to get the additional customers is because you are not really meeting the customer's customer need. And the pivot should only happen when you have understood what is the real need of the customer. Just accidentally doing something because you have read somewhere saying that, hey, AI infrastructure is the next big opportunity, I am not doing well, so let me go and do something in AI infrastructure. That is not going to help you build a scalable business. It needs to be based in terms of what are you hearing from customers. And the key point which Suhas brought out is, see, as a startup to survive, you will get distracted. But you cannot make distraction the mainstream. You have to keep that for a small percentage of your business just to help you survive, not beyond that.
Okay, thank you, Kiki. I think it's easier said than done, but at least some direction.
I know, it's not easy at all.
Some direction to go by. We're running a little short on time, so I'm going to compress some of the questions. My next question is on the ecosystem for Goa. So Goa has about, I think, 350 plus, IT startups, services companies, and there is a healthy mix of, I think, product, services, domestic market, and international market. And another background to this is that today I think the Indian IT services is about $300 billion roughly. And if I'm not mistaken, it's I think only about 40 or $45 billion that is India services.
Yes.
So a bunch of questions, I'm just compressing them into one question. We can answer them in however you like. So question number 1 is, what does India business really, how much of that comes from government services? Because I think government is today a significant customer. But I believe there is a huge untapped market in the MSME sector, including me as a customer. I have several pain points. Tally is one product which has, which has really penetrated, but even Tally, I think, has so much more to discover. So there is this product play versus services play, because I think the Indian MSME is not, what shall I say, there is a little reluctance to pay for services, right? So product play versus services play. And the third is, with Mera Ventures, portfolio, there's so much happening, and Goa has a unique culture. We've discussed different aspects.
Growing as a market substantively. Again, just to give, and again, one of my investee companies has ICICI Bank as a customer, and only ICICI Bank gives them about 15 crores of business. Just ICICI Bank alone. Overall, last year, HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank, each one of them spent, I think HDFC Bank was about 12,000 crores and ICICI Bank was about 14,000 crores just in IT. So the Indian tech spending is certainly expanding in a big way. That's a great opportunity for companies in Goa. Because honestly, the larger players aren't interested in terms of doing much business in India, because for them, clearly doing business overseas is much more lucrative. Well, the second thing is, I think the government is more and more trying to evolve policies. In fact, I believe there is a policy in work, probably Nitin can help through Devjani's Connect to put that, that some percentage of the India business must go to SMEs in India. So if that policy comes, that will enable the thing. But looking at India as a market and government as a market, I I think right now probably the government is anywhere between 30 and 40%, but there's a lot of what I call real path-breaking IT is spending a lot. So I would think IT, SME companies in Goa, the government and the industry, because I think together they should in a way chart out what are the sort of automation initiatives they'll take up and how will local companies be a part of it. I think that becomes very, very critical. See again, what I do believe is, like you said, technology is really a disruptor. But the next wave of technology which is coming, which is really, if you say, it's driven by artificial intelligence and so on, that is not going to create the Infosys and Wipro and the big companies. It's going to create, I think, millions of smaller companies which do specific work for the customer. So this is probably also the right opportunity.
Exactly. So I think one of the follow-up questions I had was, are there specific areas that you feel, see, because again, the background is that what we cannot achieve with volume, perhaps we can achieve with value.
Correct.
So, are there some specific areas you would recommend that the gold companies look at, because there is untapped potential there, including, perhaps if there is some referral network within your portfolio companies in terms of certain pieces that the companies are looking to either outsource or develop secondary expertise in and so on.
No, certainly there will be, again, my sense is from startups, you should try and avoid taking outsourcing, not because of anything else. Till the startup raises, I'm saying, $20–25 million, because otherwise they are all capital constrained and it should become a potential write-off. So I would think you should really start targeting companies which have raised a Series B or above, which have at least raised $20 million of what I call risk equity capital. They would be more potential customers to get some work outsourced. But on the other hand, I think the government business itself, or if you look at any of the subsidiaries of the government, I'm just taking a name, like I know in Karnataka, the Cooperative Milk Federation is thinking of a large automation project, where they want to cover production, they want to cover logistics and distribution. I'm sure a similar application could be quite relevant here, because a perishable product like milk has a geographical dimension to it. So it will be a very local business. So I think there are enough examples of what are the type of IT solutions which can work even in the local context, and start building a pipeline of such opportunities. That would be a very clear thing.
Sure. Thank you. We move on to the last theme, which is AI in the classroom. I think we know a lot of what's happening in AI in the industry, and today what happens is that I think as a supplier, for want of a better word, as a supplier of the education service, educational institutions certainly use AI as a tool. But the question is, what should educational institutions do in order to guide and handhold students in ensuring that AI gets used responsibly? Because I look at it as a calculator, right? As a rough analogy, as a calculator. Is a calculator to be allowed or not allowed? At the third and fourth standard for multiplication tables, certainly no, I cannot allow calculators. But at a BCom level to tally my balance sheet, certainly I will allow a calculator. So if I have to use a rough calculator, the challenge with AI is that do what you may, students will have access to AI, and that cannot be stopped, and it must not be stopped or regulated. But the question is, what should educational institutions do to guide? That is question one. And the second question is in terms of assessments. What are your thoughts in terms of how AI can help drive the quality of assessments?
No, one, I think in the context of learning, people should really think of AI as an enabler for them to improve their cognitive abilities. If you are completely outsourcing the work to AI, honestly, that is a very negative sort of way to look at the way in which you can enable AI. What I mean by the ability to improve your cognitive thing is, I know you have a law college here, and assuming if there is an exam on commercial contracts and laws. I think the student can learn on commercial contracts and disputes, and AI can throw to them not only the current cases which are relevant in India, but also probably bring it into an answer, can really improve the cognitive abilities of the lawyer. So, I think it has to be repositioned from saying it will substitute my thinking ability. AI would substitute my thinking ability, and I'll just sort of take a download from Claude or ChatGPT and just submit as an assignment. It needs to be saying, can I use it as an enabler? Can it give me some thought process, and I distill something out of it and give my viewpoint in terms of what should happen to me. So that distinction needs to come as to how do you use AI as an enabler, not necessarily as quote unquote a servant which does my assignment work. Now coming to the second part, assessment. See, there are a couple of ways in which you can. I know American universities have started using what they call assessment tools to say, has the student just copied it from AI. So it throws out things which have just been an output of AI itself. But the key aspect in terms of improving assessment is it brings in a lot more uniformity in terms of how you can do it. Because at the end of the day, when you just do it manually, there is that element of human mindset and fatigue which can set in, which means your standards are not consistent from student 1 to student 2. That's clearly enabling AI to be a supportive tool for the teaching community can really enable them to be consistent in terms of their assessment. Probably bring in some new aspects which even the professor may not have thought of. Saying that, hey, have you thought of this context when you think about quote unquote a physics problem which was asked to be solved. So the ability to make consistency in assignment, the ability to bring in new context in assessment can really improve with the use of AI.
Thank you, Vijay. I think so if we are able to evolve a framework for that, we could probably call it digitized Gyan Pariksha or DJV.
Yes, that's really
So I think we will kind of wrap up with that before we open to audience questions. But before we do that, just to get to know KK a little better, his professional side as well as his personal side, we'll do a quick rapid fire.
Sure.
So I have 10 questions.
Yes.
So instant coffee or filter coffee?
Filter coffee. Chennai boy.
Aggressive growth or sustained profits?
Sustained profit. I'm a little bit of the old school.
No, great. I'm happy to hear that. Work with music or work in silence?
I work in silence. I'm not that much of a music guy. Too much of the left brain orientation.
Fail fast or measure twice?
I would say in the current context in which I am, fail fast. But the important thing is, because what I see in entrepreneurs is that they get wedded to an idea. They start themselves believing this is the way to do it. Which is why I often encourage them saying, don't get too much enamored by your idea.
Ideal Sunday morning, wake up early for some me time or sleep in and have brunch directly?
Ideal Sunday morning time is to go for golf.
Okay, so early morning. Spreadsheet or instinct? I think you partly answered this.
See, instinct really, because honestly, spreadsheet is again something which needs to validate what you've got by that.
Your favorite midnight snack? Noodles and thumbs up or fruit salad and ice cream?
Honestly, avoid midnight snacks. I've been trying to eat more sensibly.
My wife will approve of that if I need to avoid that. So unlimited plan B or a stubborn roadmap?
Sorry?
Unlimited plan B or a stubborn roadmap?
Unlimited plan B.
Okay. Rasam or payasam?
Payasam. I have a sweet tooth.
Mistakenly reply all or mute button failure during a Zoom call?
I think mistaken reply all, I'll do more.
Alright, So thank you very much. It's been a wonderful opportunity for me, wonderful interaction. Thank you to Damodar College for giving me this opportunity. We're kind of out of time, but certainly we want to open it up to audience questions. So please feel free to, yes, there's a question by Bharat and then a student, a couple of students there. Good.
Yes.
Sure. So we'll take this one question from Bharat and then we'll pass it on to students.
What rather you have to bring out is where do we stop learning and where do we adopt our AI to customer expectations, and at what point do we turn to the customer for problem solutions with the problems they have? How do we apply AI to solutions to the problems they have?
No, I think that's a very interesting question. Honestly, I am discovering it myself. I did mention a lot of discipline we are building within our industry companies is irrespective of whatever you have thought of as an idea, we need to have one customer as a design partner. So I tell you, that has entirely changed how success looks like for a number of our companies. And we just sort of continuously keep asking the customer saying, does this solve the problem? What else will solve the problem and so on. So I do see while technology is an enabler like AI, at the end of the day, what is the fulcrum in the center is really the customer and his problem. Are you even defining the problem right? Many times we find we are not defining the problem right. So it is the customer who's absolutely critical in the context of even leveraging technology to deliver an outcome which will really meet his needs and potentially also provide an opportunity for building a business of scale. Sorry, there are some students there. Yes, go ahead. Please let your name and... Sorry, the mic.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Ethan from Vidya Vikas, studying in class 12. And I'd like to ask you what advice you'd give a startup, because working ruthlessly without direction is pointless. Also, sir, as you said, we Indians need to ask for help. Can I get your guidance or mentorship from you as I hope to build a startup or be a business person like you?
See, I must be honest, I think it's very important not to do a startup just because it looks nice and everybody, because honestly in today's context everybody feels startup is exciting and fun. I think you should start it because you believe there's a problem to be solved and somebody will pay money to solve that problem. Honestly, if both don't exist, then I think you're doing honestly a disservice in doing a startup. So firstly, convince in terms of what is the problem I want to solve. First of all, is it to be solved at all? Because I tell you, the world has so many problems. Not all problems need to be solved. But once you're solving it, there will be somebody willing to pay for it. I'll tell you one of our recent sort of investment is in a company which has built a miniaturized robo to completely eliminate manual scavenging. I don't know how many of you know, in India, every year, about 400 people die because they do manual scavenging. Because the moment you open the manhole, there are poisonous gases which come and they just die. This was the purpose for which this guy is from IIT Chennai, he started it. But we said, you know what, this is a nice purpose, first build the product. Because it's not easy, because you need to miniaturize it in a form where it will get into a manhole. The technologies are very complex, because within a 3 feet sort of robo, you need to build a suction capacity of almost, I think, 600 meters or something. So the tech is very complex. So we said first build it. 2 years he did that. Then a lot of the business was only municipal. So we said, you know what, it's dangerous for us to invest in a business which is municipal. Because then money won't come, you will take time. Try and make it into something else also. So he built a mobility into that so that the miniaturized robot can travel underground pipes and look at cracks as well as water leakage. Today 50% of the business comes from water management company. That's how we invested about 3-4 months back. So what I'm trying to say is, it's important you believe in the problem which you're solving. It's important to have somebody who pay money to solve that problem. And then you need to see, is it long-term sustainable? Honestly, this entrepreneur would have told me, saying, you know what, I'm only fascinated by the manual scaffolding. I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do. Go to inspecting underground pipe. But he comes from a remote village in Bihar. He understands business like nobody. He immediately picked it up and said, you know what, I think what you're saying is right. I will do it and demonstrate to you that I'll get business there also. So it's important, like I said, to seek advice, seek others' counsel, and do what is right for the business.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Vinny. I'm studying in class 12 right now. And I started this project. I'm working on it by myself right now. It basically aims to be an enabler for differently able people. So, obviously, your area of expertise is taking an idea and scaling it up 1,000-fold. So, do you have any recommendations when it comes to maybe patenting or taking it forward, maybe building an app?
See, honestly, when I mentioned about Mindtree wanting to be a much more socially responsible company, we worked on a lot of innovations for differently able people. We were the first to build a keyboard for people with cerebral palsy. Yeah. We did a mouse for them, all of which are now commercially available because we went to IIT Chennai, sort of rejigged the design and then started manufacturing it on things. There is right now a very, I would say, thriving organization called Assist Tech, I think. It's run by an ex-Infosys guy, which is again doing a lot of work in assistive technology. The whole area is called assistive technologies. I must be honest, I have not seen any of this go commercial. Because very honestly, I think venture investors like us would hesitate to invest in this because we can't get the 10x type of returns which we expect. But there is a set of what I call impact investors who look at it. In fact, I think I even have the contact, I can pass on the... I think it's good to look at what they're doing, and because the reason why I'm not able to give more is it's a very specialized area. You need people who have been working on it to give you a lot more thing. One of my own ex-colleagues called Manix, he's been doing a lot of work. He in Mindtree Foundation used to run the whole new technologies for assistive people. He has done a lot of work in that. So he would be another good source to tap into.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hello sir, I am Amok and I'm studying in class 11. My question to you would be, how beneficial is it in investing in an MBA when so many things are already available on the internet?
Very good question. You know what, if I look at it today, would I go back to do an MBA? The answer is no. I don't think. But on the other hand, what an MBA will give you is a network of connections. I tell you, that is extremely valuable. Extremely valuable. I still have my connections of XLR81 whom I tap into if I need something. My son, who's from AL MBA, he is moved completely into a philanthropy-driven organization, but he uses a lot of his AL MBA connections to do new stuff. So don't sort of look at it just from what it will teach you. I think today the value of an MBA comes in terms of the networks it creates. And I must be honest, while I said there is this mindset of having a hero worship, the moment you say you're an MBA, there are some doors which open to you. That's the reality.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. Yeah, good afternoon, sir. I am Swam Prabhu from MCOM department. I have always heard in life that the most important decision you take in life is choosing a right life partner.
Correct.
So from business context also, I think it is the most important thing, choosing a right business partner. So on what basis or what criteria you choose a business partner? It is just intuition, gut feeling, or there is some other criteria on which you choose to partner with them for that business?
Honestly, there's no intuition in this. I think it's very important first the values match. Again, Suhas knows my colleague Subrato, both of us really started the initial thing of Mindtree. Our values match completely. Both of us are very focused in terms of values. That's a very fundamental sort of thing. Both of you need to have similar values, because what happens is, in difficult situations when values get questioned, at that time there should be a dissonance in terms of values. The second key thing is you must have complementary skills. Again, since Suhas knows Mindtree well, we both have very different sort of thing. I am a very left brain oriented guy, I want numbers to everything and I will question. Whereas Subrata is a completely right brain guy. But many times on areas I will concede to him. Like, I must be honest, when he said, oh, we'll spend 120 crores on a learning center in Bhubaneswar, I said, what is the reason? We shouldn't even be doing it. But then I said, that's his area of expertise, I'll just allow him to do. So it's very important to have complementary skills. And more than complementary skills, understanding what is the strength which the other person brings what area, and completely trust him in that. Because I think in a business partnership, beyond having complementary skills, I think the innate trust you have in people is very critical. You must trust the person in the area of his expertise and just blindly sort of follow that.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. My question is, like, when companies make continuous losses and suddenly they start making profits, they shout out to the world that we are EBITDA positive, we are EBITDA positive. I mean, how important is this metric for investors, or is just another metric to keep investors engaged with the business?
See, I must be honest, investors value financial parameters extremely. Because see, at the end of the day, let's be very clear, investors are there to make quote-unquote unreasonable returns. They are not there for social purposes. They are there to make money. And they only make money if the financial parameters keep improving. Because if you look at listed companies, how are they valued? They are valued on EBITDA multiples, or they are valued on enterprise value, which is really EBITDA multiples. Which is why companies get very focused on that. But on the other hand, the negative thing is companies also get over-obsessed with that and do what I call short-term tricks to improve EBITDA. Or creative accounting. That is where I think the dissonance will start. So the ability of good companies is to ensure that you push yourselves to improve your business, improve your financial parameters. But don't adopt any questionable practices in doing that. Again, I did mention early in the call that I had the fortune of working with Mr. Premji very early on. And one of his principles was, any action which you take should stand public scrutiny. And his simple thing was, if you take an action, will a third person see that action and say, hey, it is okay? Very simple philosophy to follow. Another simple philosophy he taught me was, there is nothing which is grey. It's either black or white. Which is one reason why, irrespective of having grown to the size which Wipro is, they don't pay a single rupee of bribe. Irrespective of projects will get delayed for 2 years, 3 years, they will not pay a single rupee of bribe. They won't sort of circumvent the law.
So I have another question, is that do government subsidies generally help startup grow, or they create a dependency that prevent them, the startups, of surviving in the long term?
No, I'll tell you, the thing in terms of risk capital in taking a large amount of risk capital in the early stage is that venture investors want the company to grow 100% every year. So to that extent, founders also get pressurized to do whatever they can do to demonstrate growth. But Is that going to become sustainable is always a question. But then you have to choose venture partners who necessarily don't just drive growth without building a business which is sustainable. Which is the critical, I would almost say, decision which the founder has to take. Who's the partner whom I am bringing in to put money into the company? That becomes very critical. Because if you are just bringing in a financial investor who wants return in quick time, he will drive you to drive growth at any cost.
Thank you.
As in your 45 years of experience building companies, we have seen a lot of success as well as setbacks. So I want to ask, what is the one piece of advice you want to give your younger self that it would help us also?
One advice which probably today if I would, again is a little bit influenced by every week I meet 3-4 teams of young people who have such outstanding ideas. Why didn't I start early? I started when I was 42. So sometimes I think coming from a background which is middle class, we want to build some quote unquote resources and then start. I don't think it's a good idea to do that, I'm being honest. If you think you're seeing a problem which needs to be solved and somebody will pay for it, irrespective of what stage of your career you are in, you should start building a group of like-minded people and plunge into it. Don't wait for the right time. The right time is any time. When you see the problem and you're confident you can solve it.
With respect to this answer only, if I have to meet a like-minded people, so and I don't want to get into job, but to meet those people, if I have to go to a job, is it okay to go into the industry and work?
Nothing wrong at all. In fact, many of the founding teams which we see are all people who work together. Then there are other initiatives. I know you might want to look at a site called Entrepreneur First. They run a program where they get people together to ideate and identify their co-founders. Right now I think it's probably run only in Bangalore. But there are, I would say, platforms which are enabling people to do that.
I think we will have time for maybe one or two questions. There are some questions this side. We'll take 2 more questions. It's very heartening to see all the questions. Yeah, from the students, absolutely. So we will hear from them, and if there are any questions, we will be happy.
Good to have a lady ask a question.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Nayana Bhandari, 4th year law student from Konkani College of Law. And my question for you is, as AI rapidly automates legal research, trade secret protection and code generation, IP laws are struggling to keep pace. From your point as a VC investor, what is the single biggest IP or legal risk tech startups are generally overlooking when adopting generative AI?
No, I think the biggest risk is, are you really transgressing into somebody's IP? Today I think it's not becoming quote unquote a litigated issue, but soon that will become, because the fact is that with so much of open source and people building on top of it, where is the line between where you're transgressing somebody's IP? In fact, this whole case of, I think it's Apple versus Samsung, this is happening in terms of some design. It's really probably an outcome of this, because there's so much happening that you don't know where you have transgressed the line. And on a lighter way, some of the legal community is making this an opportunity. I know of in Bangalore, which has just made this their business, and I know they are doing a lot of business, just focusing on IP loss and transgressions of IP. It is a real risk, because today with generative AI, you get access to so much of information, which earlier in the search model, see ultimately the big difference between search and the generative mode of AI, search based on your search word just looks for document. But here, it can establish the context, it can go and pull out documents, not just with search, but based in terms of what is the prompt you've given it. So, the chances that there might be an IP translation in this is far higher than a mere search.
Thank you, sir. One more question for you is, what red flag in a founder's team sheet tells you their governance isn't ready for institutional capital?
See, one thing we have started doing is, we've really said when we fund, we want the founders to have a founder agreement between themselves. Because honestly, like I said, building a company takes at least 10-15 years and there will be differences of opinion. We don't want at that time disputes coming within founders. So we say even at the time of investment, we want a proper agreement between the founders, which we call the founders agreement. But I must be honest, I think this is what you need to potentially plan for, because not all founding teams will stay together for 10 years, 15 years. There will be people who will follow. But how do you handle it in an elegant manner at the time when the dispute comes is the most critical thing, and you need to get prepared.
Thank you, sir.
Just to add to that, there have been a couple of recent court rulings which have held the LLM responsible for generating.
Yes, absolutely.
In India, not in Europe.
Yes. So the two ladies.
Yeah, this one had asked.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon. Hello sir. So my name is Shreya and I am currently pursuing BCom. So my first question to you is, we as commerce students, what skills should we start developing now to remain relevant in rapidly changing business environment?
See, in fact, many times I think the curiosity to continue to look at new things is extremely important. Because in today's context, I think you can't live with the thing that something is emerging and I may not be affected by it. So, enabling the curiosity and being curious about things is extremely critical. Because that is what will give you at least the environment to always try and improve yourself, to continuously learn and also be relevant. Beyond that, I think you must choose to say, what is the space I will be the best in? You could say, hey, I'm going to be the best person in understanding Indian accounting sort of thing. Or how does GAAP vary from the Indian accounting standard? But you must be an expert in it, because when people have a doubt in that, they should come to you to see, saying what is the right thing to be done. So I think while both these elements should look little contradictory, getting deep into an area and being the specialist and being curious, but you have to manage these contradictions.
Thank you, sir. So my second question to you, and this question I'm more curious to know. So the question is, what is one leadership lesson from your own career that you wish you had learned much earlier?
See, you know what? One which I learned honestly is from Mr. Premji. See, one of the most positive things of Wipro was that they'll never leave you to be in one function or thing. I joined in sales and marketing, then I got moved to something else, I got moved to something else. And like Suhas said, when I joined the global software business, talent was always a problem. And invariably when talent is in shortage, you blame HR people. So in one meeting I blamed the HR people saying they are not doing this, they've done it, I have grown my business so much and so on. So after the meeting, Mr. Premji called me and said, if you're sort of complaining about them so much, you must have the guts to run that function. I suddenly got a shock saying, who will do HR job? And I said, I'll think about it and come back the next day. So next day I go to him and say, Mr. Premji, that's fine, but then it is HR and admin. At that time it used to be HR and admin. I don't like admin, it's so good. He said, no problem, we'll pull out admin, you do only HR. You know what, that turned out to be my best interview, because I really got to know how to deal with people. How do you really empathize with people and make them feel good? I still remember one of the things he told me was, see, as a HR head, you must know your people. You must sort of make them feel special. So I started doing a little bit of things, like in my Outlook, if you look at it beyond the person, I'll have his wife's name, his kid's name and so on, so I meet him, I'll ask him about his wife. It gives people a sense of belongingness, they start sort of trusting you more and so on. It's a very simple sort of thing. He just told me saying, hey, you need to put an extra effort to know your people well, which I did this role in early 90 to 93 or something. It's still sort of after 30 years, it still stayed with me.
Thank you so much, sir.
I think we'll take one last question and keep it.
Yeah, there's a lady behind.
It's wonderful to see all these questions. We're just running a little short of time.
One.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Maisa Sayed. I'm a first year BBA student. And my question is, after COVID-19, we saw a huge increase in startup funding. So from your experience, I would like to know, has abundant capital actually made entrepreneurship easier, or did it just create a different set of problems?
No, if you ask me in terms of the quality of entrepreneurship, it has increased 10x. Today we find people coming with real problems to be solved, where there will be people willing to pay money. So while abundance of entrepreneurship is true, I think the quality of entrepreneurship has also significantly improved. The other thing which I see is people who work with organizations really experience a customer problem, willing to give up their job. They have earned steady salaries for 10 years, 15 years. At mid of their career, they are willing to take a risk and start an enterprise, which again is good. And honestly, the ecosystem is growing very well, and I must be honest, the government is doing phenomenally good on that. Like just to give you an example, in my fund, the government will invest about 40% of my fund just to help invest in new startups. Because they believe they don't have the reach to identify startups, manage them and so on. So I think it's all good for the environment. Because at the end of the day, if you look at it, there will be only so much the large companies can do. Because what is it that India needs over the next 10-15 years is for intelligent people who are doing their degrees and coming out, they should have reasonable quality jobs, and that's what really the startups will create. And today there's whatever, it's some 400,000 startups which are there in India, but I think the number should be probably 10 times that number. See, US with a population which is probably 1/8 of India has, I think, 35 million small and medium enterprises. Because that's the culture of the country itself. To start a business is very acceptable thing. Whereas in India, that culture is changing. People are starting to accept entrepreneurship. People are starting to accept failure in entrepreneurship will happen. So it's no more something which nobody will do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think we will reluctantly, I will draw this to a close because we're running out of time. If there are any questions, please share it with Professor Maitili. We'll be happy to collate it and get it across to KK and get you the answers back. So thank you, KK. This has been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much once again. So my takeaway from everything you told us was have a purpose, define your direction, build on values, and proceed with transparency. So that is my takeaway. Wonderful learning from you once again, and great to have you here on campus. So thank you very much, and
thank you.